Hello, my name is Talisa and welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video, I'll be focusing on creating your resume in React. Okay. Now, before we start into that, please consider subscribing this video, subscribing my channel because 75% of my users haven't subscribed, 25% of them have. So do consider subscribing. I have been posting Ruby on Rails and React related videos almost daily around 8 p.m. And there is a lot of content which you won't find on the internet, so it's really quality content. And once I'm done with all the basic stuff in August, I'll start creating again big projects like e-commerce or Instagram clone or Twitter clone, those kind of products, which are really good. But for that, we require Rails and React knowledge. Okay. Now, in this particular video, you'll understand things from scratch, meaning how to select your template, how to use Figma to create designs, how to create components in React. You don't need to know React, you just need to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, so let's start. First, you can search resume design Figma. Okay, in that you will find a lot of templates. Just or maybe directly go to community, and in this you can search resume design. Okay, you'll find a lot of designs here. Pick whichever one works for you. In my case, I had decided on a black and white theme already. So let me search that. Illustration website resume. Yeah, by Janvi Shah. This one works for me because it has minimal design. Basically, there is not a lot of colors, which is good for creating video tutorials. Okay, so let's start with this. There are three things here. First is the mockup, which shows this how it will look. Second is the pages, which are basically there are two versions. One is for girls, one is for boy, and inside that there are again two versions. One is for desktop, one is for mobile. Okay, and finally then there are components. So if you can find components in any Figma design, that's a really good design. That's the first criteria. Okay. There are obviously many criteria to decide whether the Figma designs are good or not, but that's the first criteria because components is something which every designer creates such that those components can be replicated by the developer. And once developer replicates those component, it becomes really easy, especially for developers to maintain the code. Okay. So let's start with the pages part. Now you can see in pages, I'll select this boy. So let's expand. And again, you can see why I'm saying that they have created very good design because first is header. Okay, so they have created a section for header. Similarly for hero, if you go to hero, then there are two things. One is, sorry, not this. Skills. Inside skills also you have two things. One is the container. Inside container we have row. Inside that we have row for these items, and inside that we have like two columns. So everything has been segregated perfectly. Okay. So what we will do is I want to update my portfolio and I will use this design. We'll host this on some free, either Vercel or Netlify, mostly Netlify because my previous website was already hosted on that. But creating this entire website will take time. Okay, it will be like 3 to 4 hour long video. I don't want that. Okay, I want to just give you knowledge which is required, and after that, everything you can do on your own. Okay, so what I will do is, first of all, I won't create this form because we don't have a backend, and I don't want someone to fill out details here and then go to email to send details. Okay, so I'll skip this part first. Second, I had already searched about this outline text, which is doc, but there is no good font which matches with this design, so I won't use these outline text. And third, I won't add testimonials for now. That's one, and I might skip one of these things. Okay, just so that I'll skip only those parts for which I have already communicated enough things to you. Okay, in such a way that you are confident that you can do this on your own. Okay, so let's start. What you will need is first you will need Node in your laptop. Okay, so for that you can easily Google search Node install, or you can go through this particular website and find your installer. Okay, once you do have done that, you can go through this how to install React step-by-step guide. Go through this step, follow these steps, and install React also. After that, using Vite, we will set up our React app. Okay, why? Because there are two ways to do this. One is the simple React way, which is like npx create React app, those kind of things. Okay, But that is not the most commonly used way right now. The most commonly used way in today's era is using Vite. Okay, why? Because Vite allows us to create project not just in React, but many other frameworks and libraries like Preact. Let me check. Yes, Vanilla.js, Preact, Vue, Svelte, Solid, Quick, Lit. So that's why it becomes a much more suitable option in today's era. So let's start with this. The first command that we have to use is this. Okay, you can do this with any one of these. Just if you get error that npm not found, then search that error and try to install npm, or similarly for yarn, pnpm or bug. Okay, and I won't use @latest, but you can. For my case, I won't use it because I don't want the latest version. I already have it set up in my machine. Okay, so let's start. CD desktop, YouTube, code. Okay, now let me use this command, which is npm create. We are creating a Vite project, right? So Vite, then we have to name our project. So I would use something very simple, resume website. Enter. It will give us the list. Which one do you want to select? So I will select simple React. Okay. It will again give us this, options like TypeScript or JavaScript. So I will use JavaScript. Okay. Let's enter. Now they have given us commands to follow. Let's follow these commands. First, you should always read this command, try to understand things, and then work on them. So first thing is cd resume website. Basically, we want to shift to resume folder. That's one part. Second, in that we want to use npm install. What it will do is it will install all the required packages for our React project. Okay, it will install all the node package modules. Okay, node package manager actually. Using that, it will install all the node modules. Okay, after that, we can finally use npm run dev, which means that we can run our website. So let's start. Npm install. You can see our folder has changed here, website, npm install, and after that, we'll use npm run dev. Meanwhile, I'll open the website also. Open desktop. Where is YouTube? YouTube, code, resume website. Open. Okay. Okay. Things have been installed. Clear. Npm run dev. This is the website. So let's try to open that. And we can see the website is working on our port. We can see the logo and all those things. And we can click on this. It will increase the counter and all. Great. So now we will try to understand the project structure. When we ran all these commands, what happened? Okay, so let's start. So there are few folders here, 3 folders. Okay, we'll go through them later on. And there are files. ESLint is basically, it helps us in linting of our code. Basically gives us a small error related to React, like if some command is been written incorrectly, all those kind of things. Okay, not a big deal. It's not that important, but it helps in development basically. Git ignore will ignore all these files and folders which are mentioned in this, so that when we commit our code to GitHub, all these will get basically ignored. Out of all these, this node modules is important. This node modules, this is also getting ignored. I will explain you later, but I want to add one more file which gets generated many times in your MacBook. Okay, so for that file is ds store. For Windows or Linux user, you won't have to do this. Okay. So what is node modules? You remember the command we used, npm install. So npm install is the command after which this node modules pack folder was created, and inside that all the libraries that we need to create a React project were installed, downloaded as well as installed. Okay. So we don't want to push that entire downloaded, installed all those chunk of files to our GitHub, right? It would be just waste of space. At the same time, if someone is trying to replicate the project, they can download the project from GitHub and or fork the project from GitHub, clone the project from GitHub, and they will just have to write npm install and everything will get installed automatically. So why waste resources, right? So that's the basic concept about node modules, that we don't want to push it on our on GitHub. Okay. Now let's go to index.html file. This is the starting point of any website, right? So either you name it as index.html or some other file, but generally it's index.html only. Okay. You can see Vite plus React is coming up here, Vite plus React. So first of all, actually, I will close other things and I'll keep this design. Okay, let's pin this and let's pin this too. Okay, so actually unpin this so that we can change the name here. Let me change this to my name, Rajat Talesra. And you can see the name has changed. Similarly, we can change the favicon icon also, which we'll do later on. Okay, so this is the starting point. In this, just remember this part, which is there is a div with ID root. Okay, I'll explain you later where it will come. And this script part, which is it is running some script in source folder main.jsx. We have a source folder, and inside that we have main.jsx. Great. We'll see how things are working later on. Then we have something called as package lock, but first we need to see package.json. So what it does is it has all the dependencies, all the libraries that we require to create a React website, like React, React DOM. So all these things get installed using package.json. If you want to install some new library, you will have to write it here. And if you write it here, it will get installed. Once that gets installed, it will create a lock file, which means we cannot change it. That lock file is called package.json. Okay. So if you want to add or remove any library, do it in package.json, run the npm install command, and automatically package.json will get correctly created. Okay. Uh, or you can understand that package.json is a expanded, more detailed version of package.json file. Okay. In this, we have different commands also, right? Like we last ran npm run dev command. So it was running npm run, which command you want to run dev. Similarly, we can run npm run build, npm run lint, npm run preview. Okay. So basic scripts. Now let's go to readme.md file. This is the basic readme file, which let me add this resume website. Basic readme file which automatically gets generated, which is helpful in GitHub. Okay, and this final Vite config file. In this, we are just mentioning that hey, we are using React. Earlier, you remember when we were creating the project from the drop down, there were Vite, Vanilla.js, all those kind of things, right? After all those different frameworks and libraries, we selected React. So that's what it is mentioned here. Okay, now let's close all the files and public folder. So we have already covered node. Actually, let me cover this node modules in a bit more detail. So for that, I'll go to node package.json. Now let's go to something called as React. Okay, maybe not React. Where is this? Okay, let's go to this highlight only. Okay, so you can see they have mentioned that it is a node modules Babel highlight. So let's go node modules Babel and highlight, right? So basically it contains information about okay, what libraries we have installed and where we have installed it, which version we have installed it, what type of environment they are using, how to use it. Okay, all those kind of things. You don't need to go in depth of it, but that's how node modules packages gets generated, package lock.json file gets generated. Okay. Now let's go into public folder. In this, you keep files which are normally outside of your body. Okay. So if you know basic HTML, this is the body. And there is a head section, so which contains these icons and previous normal scripts that you want to generate. So this favicon icon is generally which we keep in uh, public folder. You can keep many things which are, I generally keep things which are outside of the body tag. Okay. So that's one. Now comes the source folder. Source folder is the folder which is responsible for our entire code. Okay. There are various files. First one is assets folder, which is very simple. It has a React logo in it. Okay. So assets is basically keeping images, fonts, or some important files. Okay. So React logo. Great. Then there are some CSS, JSX, CSS, JSX files. What are CSS? We already know that these are designing related things. So not a big deal. Fine. What is JSX? So JSX is a basically JavaScript extensible, which basically means that in this same file you can write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, and especially Within HTML, you can write JavaScript. How do we write it? It's a different concept. We'll learn this. But the core concept is here that if you are using JSX, other than JavaScript, you can write HTML code also. So that's the first advantage. Okay. Now let's go to main.jsx. Why? Because if you remember our index.html, I mentioned two things to remember. One is the root and second is the main.jsx file. So root, we don't know what it is doing right now, but we know that this script will get executed. And if this script is getting executed after index.html file, this is the second file which is getting executed. So let's go to main.jsx. Now inside that they have imported something good. Let's understand this code. Okay. So what this code means? This code means that, hey, try to find an element called root. Okay. Do we have that element here in our body? Yes, we do have that element. Now inside that, create a root and render app component. So basically what it means is that whatever is app component, we don't know that. It is some form of UI, it is some form of design. Okay. So this code is simply saying that find the root element and inside that add this app component. Okay. So you can name it something else. You can update it here and it will still work. Okay. So this is the concept, basic concept here. Okay. Now, when we write render, what it does is this app contains React code. So what it will do is it will convert that React code into basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript code and add that entire code in our root folder, root element, and it will finally get displayed on our website. Okay. What is this strict mode? This I'll explain you later. It's an easy concept, but later meaning I just want to go in app.jsx file first. Okay. So if we go to app.jsx file, you can see we are writing some function. Inside function, we have a constant, which means JavaScript code, but we also have div inside this return, which is a HTML, CSS code. So that's why I was explaining you that there is HTML, CSS, as well as JavaScript in JSX. Okay. Now, in this video, we don't need use a state thing. It's a hook. It's an advanced, not an advanced, but a basic concept in React. But this particular video, we don't need that. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of it so that the video doesn't get out of length. So let's get rid of this, We don't need this, all these things. What I will do is I'll make it very simple and use h1 hello world. Okay. I know we are using some code, extra code that I still need to explain, but I'll explain you. Okay. Now, if we have done that, we can see the website has been loaded. It looks good. Great. Are we using this app.css anymore? No, it was getting used in this, but we are not using it anymore. So let's delete this. Are we showing this React logo? No. So let's delete this. Okay. Are we using this main.css? Yes, because of which this entire page is getting shown. So what I'll do is we will be using Tailwind in our project. So I'll get rid of all these designs. I don't need that. Okay, let me check. Yes, I'll get rid of all these actually. Okay. And I will update this later on. Refresh and we can see it has been updated. Great. So this is the basic setup that we have done. Now let's understand app.jsx. Okay. So before we go into that, let's see things here. So in React, everything is a component. A component can be any form of, for you, you can understand it as a form of UI. Okay. So for example, this header is a component. This hero section is a component. This skill section is a component. At the same time, it can be further divided into sub-components. For example, this text, my skills, can be a component. This item inside that, which is one single skill, can still be a component. Inside that, this image can still be a component. So basically, you divide everything in components such that you don't repeat code first. Your code becomes scalable so that you can just, for example, I can name this entire card as a skill. Okay. Like we have h1 tag, we have h2 tag, we have button tags in HTML. Similarly, I'll create a skill tag and I'll directly use that skill tag everywhere. If I'm using that, my code will automatically become scalable because I won't have to write the entire code of designing this square border, centering things again and again. I can just use a skill and it will work. Okay. So that's the concept of component, creating reusable parts of the website. Okay. Another advantage of components is that, for example, if there is some functionality, some heavy functionality which is going on in this hero section, okay, now, if user is interacting with it, this is getting updated again and again and again. This won't affect our other components like skills, like header, like footer, all those things. Okay. So what happens is that if one component gets updated in React, all other components don't get affected from it. Okay. Only that particular component or its child will get affected. Other components won't get affected by default. Okay. You can make your code to work in such a way that other components also get affected, but generally other components won't get affected. And that way you won't have to refresh your website. If you are creating your HTML, CSS, JavaScript website, either you will have to control things in a really great way in JavaScript, or you will have to refresh your website, create multiple pages, then open website in a multiple thing, basically create multiple pages for each and everything. In this, we create multiple components, but those components are reusable at various places. Okay. So that's the advantage of React. Now let's start working towards it. Okay. So actually before working, there are two things that I want to explain. How do you create a component? So at basic level, you can understand this in two things. There are two types of components. One is class component, second is functional component. I won't explain you class component because industry standard is such that we don't use class components anymore. Uh, Except for really high level coding, we skip doing class component. We normally use functional component, and this is a function, right? So app is a component here. Okay. Second, anything can be a function, right? So how do you say that it's a React component? It has a return keyword which returns some form of UI. Okay. So the basic convention of creating a React component is it should have a return keyword with some basic code in it, which is related to UI, some functionalities there. Along with that, the function name should start with the capital letter. Okay. If it is not starting with capital letter, we don't generally consider that as a React component. Okay. Otherwise, there is no fixed criteria, no hard and fast rule that you have to do things in this way only. Okay. So that's the basic thing. Now there are two types of functions also. This is a simple function. Then there are arrow functions also. For example, const app. Okay, this is a arrow function. It's a JavaScript concept. That's why I won't explain you in detail. You should already know what arrow functions are. Okay, the basic logic is it is a bit more advantageous to use arrow functions compared to React functions. Sorry, not React function, basic JavaScript function. At the same time, it's easier to read. It's simply arrow function, right? So we'll be creating more functions like this only. Okay. Now let's start. So I'll just drink some water here. Okay. So at the very basic level, I'll create this component skills. Okay. Now, one advantage that we get with working with React is that you don't need to start from header only. You can start from anywhere. Okay. Actually, I don't think I should start with my skills. I think I should start with header only. Okay. But I won't use these options in my website because I don't need them actually. Okay. So let's start. Uh, Let me check how it will look in hover. Okay. So let's go to component. Then there are buttons. It's a resume button, default button. Okay. When I hover, the color changes to this. When it is active, it gets changes to this. In our case, active won't be required, so we'll just use default and hover. Okay, so let's go to pages and let's try to use this. Okay. Inside header, if I go to container, there is a fixed width of 1280. So what I'll do is I'll keep my content within 1280 pixels. Yes, I can use, you can see left hand side border on the entire website. So I'll keep the content fixed to 1280 maximum width and we'll see from there. Okay. So let's start. what I'll do is I'll create a folder. So try to understand the project structure also. If any framework, any library is giving too much freedom, then creating a really good project structure becomes really important. Otherwise, your code will become messy really soon. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create something called as components. Okay, and I'll also create something called as sections. So folder section. This header I'll consider this as a what should I consider it? I'll consider it as section only. It can be a container also, but I'll consider this is it can be part of this component folder also, but I'll consider this as part of sections also only. Okay, still it will be a component in React terminology, but I just want to segregate things. If something is taking entire width of the page and it's completely independent of that of other things, I'll consider that as section. And inside that, if there are smaller units, I'll consider them as uh, components. Okay, so inside this, I'll create a file, name it as header.jsx. Okay, now let's create a component const header. I'll have to create an arrow function for this. Again, note down that the first character is capital. Export default header. Return. I'll create a div here. Header. Okay. Can we see this on our website? No, because we haven't used it. What is getting shown here? Currently hello world. Why? Because in main.jsx we had mentioned that use app. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll use our header inside app. Let's go to app and I can simply open a tag. H1 is a basic HTML tag. Similar to that, each component that you create is a custom tag that you are creating. Okay. So I'll use header and I'll use self-closing here. Let's import this. It has been imported. Okay, now let's see. And we can see header. Okay, so things are working great. Now, if I want to design this, I'll have to use some library. I can use basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but I'll use Tailwind CSS. So let's use Tailwind CSS. And do we have containers in that? Yes, containers is already there, so I'll use this class actually. Yes, I'll use this class. Let's set up Tailwind with width. So simply search Tailwind CSS width. First link. We have already created the project, so let's start setting up the Tailwind. Stop the server with Control C or Command C. Let's add this to our tailwind config.js file. Tailwind config.js file content. What it means is that inside index.html and everything which is inside source folder, try to find Tailwind classes and render UI accordingly. Okay, it's the basic definition actually. And inside index.css, we'll copy these. I'll add it at top. Finally, npm run. Actually, before npm run, let me use this underline class so that we can be sure that actually we don't need to be sure. I think the font will change. Just remember how header is visible here. Rails, sorry, not Rails. It's a React project. So npm run dev. And we can see font has changed, padding has changed, margin has changed, right? So that's a proof that Tailwind CSS got configured. Great. Now let me do some basic changes. As per our design, white is the basic color, right? Background color. So let me use that color. For that, I'll keep my header open. I'll go to index.css and use white. But I'll get rid of all these things and start using at that apply, which is part of Tailwind. I'm not explaining Tailwind in this because that's easy to understand. You can directly go to Tailwind and understand that. But or either you can copy me at that tail apply bg white. Okay, I'll use this. Let's see. Okay, great. And I'll use text Text color should be black by default. So that's also fixed. And I have to decide on the font also. Font weight is fine, but I'll use font. Actually, I don't need to use font. I'll get rid of this. And line height, I'll get rid. Okay. Let me check what should be the line height. If we go to components and if we go to text, let's go to the simplest line height. If something is 40, we are using 48. So 20% line height is getting used. So what I'll do is I'll use 1.2. Okay. And let me see if it is available in Tailwind. Tailwind CSS, line height, 1.2. We don't have 1.2 directly. We have 1.25. So let me check. Okay, I'll keep this 1.2 here. Now let's focus on font family. So for that, what's the font? I'll use, there are two fonts actually. One is display, this display, and second is Sora. So what I'll do is I will start using Sora only. Google Fonts Sora. You can use display as well as Sora, but I'll focus on simpler designs for this video. Let's go to get font, embed, copy this code, go to index.html file. Where is this? And paste it here. Okay. And along with that, I want to start using that font here. So for that, add change default font in Tailwind. I think I'll have to change that. If default things are getting changed or introduced, we should do that in Tailwind config file. I think I'll have to extend font family, and in that I can do it. Let me check. Yes, in font family I can mention things. I can mention it like this. So let me do that. But what I'll do is I'll copy all these fonts. These will be my default fonts. Okay. Let me add quotes around each one of these. Okay. And this will be my font that I want to add, which is Sora. Okay. Let me check the name is correct. Yes, Sora is the name. Sora is the variable name. Great. So now we can get rid of this font family also. And let me see. The font has changed actually. Font text has changed. So we have done the basic setup, and I think it's fine. It looks good to me. Great. Now let's close this, and start working on header. So for header, should I create container? Let me check the design. For that, I'll again go to pages. Inside hero section, we have a container. Inside header also, we have a container. I think we have container at all the places. So what I'll do is, I'll create a folder called containers because there can be multiple types of containers. For now, I'll use containers. Containers basically means that it will just contain things. It doesn't have any specific UI of its own. Okay. Let's create that folder. That's how I treat containers. Everyone else can treat it differently. Okay, right now I'm naming it as container.jsx only, but if new things get introduced, I will rename it. Okay. Export default container. Return return. Okay. And let's create it as div Yes. And use class name. What should be the class name here? Actually, let me think. If I use it like this, I will have to use header inside this. I will have to use a skill section inside this. And we will be at a disadvantage because all those items will contain one extra div. But I think by default also it will contain one extra div. So I okay, let's not do this actually. It won't be clean because in app also we will have to use container inside header, again container inside skills, again container inside hero. So it will not look good. So what we can do is we can introduce a class. Let's go to here, introduce a class called, but in Tailwind we already have a container and we just have to use MX auto with this. So it's not that problematic. So let's use this directly. Yeah, let's use this directly. Let me check. If we are using this type of container, which is hero section, we can see we have 80 px of padding, horizontal padding, and 60 px of vertical padding. Great. I think in skills also, I'm selecting left side skills, and in that also we have this testimonial also, about me, project, testimonial, contact form. Okay. In footer, we have 80 and 24. And what's in header? Header also we have 80 and 24. So what we'll do is we'll create two types of classes. Small, let me use container header, comma. I'm just thinking actually, how should I structure this? Should I create a div and then, yes, creating a div sounds fine. Container, footer, and finally use this at the rate apply, use, sorry, at that apply, use container and this. And inside this, we know that this header has a 80 of horizontal padding and 24 of vertical, right? So for that padding, if I'm writing 20, 20 will get multiplied by 4. So that will become 80 in Tailwind CSS, and X means horizontal and P means padding. Okay. So that's how it works. So for vertical, it will become P by 6. Okay. But we need to be sure that these classes do exist in Tailwind. You can simply go to padding and see them. Okay. PX6 does exist, right? So that's how I already know, that's why I've used it. Now, similar to this, I'll use container section. No, not this. I'll use directly section actually. Let me again think of this. Header, footer. It is taking some time because it would be great if we don't make any changes later. That's the basic thing. And use this again. But now we need 60px, right? So 60px means divide by 4, which becomes 15. And 15 is actually not part of this pairing list. 15 is not part of it. So for in that case, I can give custom value, which is dash 60px. Now let's start using them. So what I'll do is for header, these are getting applied, right? So simply change this to header. Why I'm changing this to header is also part of accessibility. You can check one of the videos, what is accessibility and everything about that. My YouTube video does have that. YouTube channel does contain that. But the point here is that it makes UI much more accessible for someone who doesn't use website in a regular way, like using a screen reader or some switch or something like that. Now let's see the UI. It looks good. Okay, on mobile it doesn't look good. Okay, so I'll fix it for mobile. Let me go here. In mobile, what do we have? If we go to hero section, we have 1640. Okay. Header. What about header? 1660, 1640. Footer is 1620. Okay. Footer is different, but I'll keep it as 1660 only and 1640. Great. So now we can use those CSS classes again. This will become for large devices. Okay. And default one will be PX 16 means 4. PY 16, which is 4. I'll copy this same thing here, paste it here. Yes, but instead of in projects, we have 16 and 40. Vertical is 40. 40 means divide by 4, which is 10. Okay, so now let's again see this. And it looks good. Okay, great. Great, great, great. Now maybe we don't need this actually. If we are using container, maybe we don't need this. But we do need. Actually, it doesn't look good. That's why I'm using this. So instead of container, what I'll use is width, max width 1280px. Great. Looks better. Works better. Let's use container only. It's fine. Now, again, let's go to design and start focusing on the main design here, which is I don't want to create this center part. I just want to create the left and right part, which means there will be gap between left and right part, right? So let's start setting up that first. So what I'll do is I'll write logo. For now, I'll just write H2 logo. I'll change it later on. Don't worry about that. Button resume. Okay. Now I want gap between them, right? So for that, let's go to header, class, flex, item center, justify between. And we can see, okay, flex means they will automatically, we can arrange them in whichever way we want. Item center means they will be aligned vertically center. And finally, justify between means that space between these items should automatically get adjusted. Okay. So this is the basic thing that we did. Now let's focus on logo. So logo is something which is getting used at two places. One is here and one is at footer. Okay. Now let's see what are the designs for that. So if we have a look at this logo, it has a height of 40px, okay, and a gap of 12, which is fine. Great. Now if we go to footer container, inside that also we have a logo which is frame 16, but this one also has a height of 40 and gap of 12. So both of these logos looks good to me. That means we can just create one logo related file component and we can directly use it. So let's do that. One major difference is in this things are black, and in this one, which is at the top, things are white, black. Here it is black, the second one is white. So let's try to figure this out. So again, I'll create a component here, new file, logo.jsx. Now here comes one thing. We already know by this point that we have to create a React component which has two parts. One is the function which we are using as arrow function. Second is the return statement which you can consider, which can have div and everything around that. But I have an extension which is called as React ES7. Yes, this ES7 why it was installed, right? Oh, okay, sorry. This is the snippet this is the what are called these called extensions that I added. What it allows us is to create components a bit quickly and a lot of other things, but I remember only one thing. So once you have installed this, what you can use React arrow function, create export. Once you click on that, based on the file name, it will directly create a exported code for us. So let's get rid of this. Here, let's use div, and inside div, we need to create this design. So let's create this design. Again, it will have an icon and a text, so side by side. So we'll use flex, class name, flex. The gap between those items is 12, so we can use gap dash 3, and we can keep those items center. Okay. First one will be logo, and second will be personal. So let's first figure out the text. Personal, right? So I'll use H2 would be fine. In a website, there can be only one H1 tag. Okay. So I'll use H2 here, logo. And first one will be image, and we need to mention it this. So what I'll do is I'll export this. Actually, I'll export this fully. Yes, it is almost a square, so I'll export this. So in Figma, you can go to select data item from here or by clicking here and use export and click on SVG. Because we are using image, so using SVG is good. And I'll go to public and directly use it here. Rename it to logo. So that actually I'll get rid of beat, delete, and I'll go to index.html, and instead of beat, I'll use logo here. So first thing has been done. Our logo has been changed here. Now let's start using logo in image. So for that, uh, there should be actually a way using public folder image in React. Slash image. Okay. src slash logo. No, slash public slash logo. Let's see if it works or not. No, it is not working. Maybe because of the relative path, but I think the better thing would be to copy this and paste it in assets also, not move actually. It's a bit replication, but you can find a solution for that. It's not a big deal. Let's close this, close. And now let's import this first. Import logo from, sorry, logo image. Logo image would be replicated. Main logo. Okay. I'm using main logo because logo is already a component for us. Dot slash asset slash logo.svg. Now this curly braces means JSX. I did mention it earlier that you can use JavaScript inside HTML. So here we are using JavaScript. What thing in JavaScript? So main logo is sort of a constant or variable. It's an object finally, right? So we can use this inside this JavaScript. Okay. Now the value of this will get equivalent to this automatically, and our website will show the logo. So let's go and see that. Refresh. Why is it not working? Because we haven't imported this. Maybe that was the reason earlier also, but it's fine. But by now, it should be easy to visualize that you can convert anything into a component and use it like HTML text, right? So we can see this here, great, but it is looking big. The size of this should be 40 by 40. So what I will do is I'll use class name width 10 height 10. Great. Looks fine. Now let's focus on the text. The text has a height of 24, and I think I'll have to use this regularly. Font size, because I don't remember this easily. 24 size font size. Sorry, not font size. Height is 24, right? So 24 means text base we can use, or it is 1.7. Actually, not leading text size. I don't want 1.75. I don't want 1.25. So if we have 24, it means text size should be 20. But again, they are controlling the line height also, which I don't want. Maybe we need line height 1.25. I'll use leading 5 actually. Let's start using 1.5 only to avoid any confusion. Here also I'll use it, and I'll use this in every text also. So let's start. Class name. We need 24. 24 means text size should be 20. So font size 20 means it should be text XL. I think it might be very big, but let's try this. Compare it without this. Yes, Excel looks big. Let's use it LG. We'll make better judgment here. And they are using bold, right? So let's use font bold. Looks good to me. I'll just name it to Rajat Talesra. Great, looks great. Now on the right side, we need this button, right? Which has resume and download icon. So let me export the download icon because we already know that I need this. Export, not PNG, SVG file, export. Great. And let's import it in assets, download. Now let's focus on button. So I'll create a component for that also. I can directly design it in header also, but the better way would be to create a component folder button.jsx. I'll use, sorry, delete because I need a file, not a folder. Button.jsx, and you react arrow function create export. We have this button. Let's directly create a button here. Okay. Uh, Now, if you are creating a button, do we have other buttons? We have get in touch, right? We are not using it, but still we have to think of it from this perspective that this button does have variable text. So we'll have to use some variable text here. For now, I'll use resume, but later on we'll change it. And let's first design it. So for designing it, we'll have to show it, right? So let's go to this and use button resume. Great. Now let's start designing it. So for that, focus on this button. It has 20 padding and 16 vertical padding. Great. So let's go here. Class name px5 py4 and a gap of 8. Flex gap 2. Then I will have to use item center. If you're using flex in horizontal direction, it's better to use item center directly. Okay. Then text should be white. So But what happens when we hover it, right? So for that, I'll go to components. On hover also, it's white only. So text white on for sorry bg black, and on hover I'll change it to what's this color? This color is primary neutral, right? Which is primary neutral. Primary neutral. What is the color code for that? Color code for that is 404040. Colors. Let me change that to RGB. What's the value? 646464. Sorry, not here. In Tailwind, can I find 646464? No. Colors, text color, no, 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 no. Let's try to find customizing colors. Neutral. Okay, we already have that name. Great. Neutral 404040. Neutral. No, we are unable to find it in neutral. So let me find 404040. Okay, it's in neutral. Sorry, neutral 700. So what I can use is on hover, BG should be neutral 700. Great. We want our button to be rounded. So let's see how it looks. It looks good. Looks good to me. Now let's focus on the text of the button. The text should be, it's of height 20. So by default, it will be base, which is fine. And what's the font? Semi-bold. So let's use font semi-bold. Okay. By the way, I have an extension for Tailwind also. Tailwind CSS. You can search it here. And because of that, I'm getting these drop-down options also. Okay. And you can see it looks good to me. Okay. Now let's add the icon also. But I won't do it here. What I'll do is I want this resume text to come wherever we are using this button, right? So let me pass it here, resume. But it won't be visible here. So how can we make it visible? So what happens is everything that we pass inside this tag, okay, like classes or anything, these are called properties, okay? And this is called children. All these things combined, like we know that properties can be like 10 or 20, like role, area level, ID, class, style, all these things are properties. So along with that resume, which is a children here, this is also property, but we name that property especially as children. So all these properties can directly be used here. So either you use props as keyword and use props dot class name, props dot children, props dot this, or you can directly expand this. So what are we sending here? If you are sending anything within the component is button here. So if you are sending anything, it can be anything within the component, that will always get used as children. Okay, you cannot change name for that. For anything else, you can change it. The advantage of this is now I can use it as children. So it's a JavaScript variable. It's a variable that is getting used. And let's see, you can see resume here. Okay. Now let's do one more thing here, which is we are getting missing props validation. What it means is that you need to validate it, like whether it is a string, whether it is a uh, boolean, what is it? So for that, we need a code like import props, prop types actually. Import prop types from, sorry, import, this is a bit confusing for me actually. Button dot prop types. We need to define type of children, which is prop types dot, it will be a children. No, not children. It can be anything actually. So node dot required. Okay. Yes, it is required. So I'll use any maybe. No. Yes. Nope. I'll have to check this code. Prop types in React, because the confusion part is that prop types can be P capital, T capital. It is types or type. Very basic confusion, but I still have it basically. Import prop types. Okay. Import prop types. Okay. Prop types. Prop types. Okay. And prop types dot this. Prop types for children in React function. One of this, it's fine. Dot required. Okay. Node is required. I've used this one only. So what's the mistake? I think using semicolon at the end was the mistake. That was a very childish mistake, but it's fine. But you got the point. Now we can change the text whenever we are using it. If you change the text, it will directly work. Okay. But along with that, I did mention that children can be anything, which also means that we can have a span here to show the image icon. So I'll use actually image only. Import download icon from dot dot slash component slash download. No, not components. Asset slash download dot svg, and we can use that directly. src equals to, and let's see. You can see download icon automatically. Okay, and it looks good and everything is great. So we did a very basic thing. We went in real depth of it, and you can see how it looks. It looks good on the website, on responsive website also. So let's close all the things. Now quickly create one another component, and I think the other component I will create is this footer. Okay, so let's start working towards that. Uh, Section, new folder, not new folder, new file, footer.jsx, RAFCE, enter. I'll use footer for semantic UI. Footer, great. From hero, can I copy anything? Let me copy the entire thing actually. And I'll change header to footer. But I'll rename this to FF. And let's go to app and use footer. Okay, now I'll start coding really quickly because I've already explained you a lot of things. We can see footer is there. Great. Now let's close other things, but we want footer to be dark. So what we'll do is we'll use, maybe invert will work. No, invert won't work directly. So better way would be using BG black. So everything is black, but we do have this. It's not full width. So what I will do is I'll go to my CSS, and I think I'll have to create a div outside this. Div, div. You can fix it in CSS also, but I want to do this quickly. So even if it is a bit ugly, it's fine. Great. Now it is working. Now I can invert this logo. So for that, I'll have to do some special things. I don't want this button. Instead of that, I want this text, right? So let's change it. What is the text size of this thing? It is made in Figma. We'll use made by Rajat. It is 20, right? Similar to what we had for button. So let me go to button, and then font semibold. Okay. Let me use it very simple. P tag, P tag. What was the text here? Made in Figma, right? So made by Rajat Talesar, or maybe developed using React because it already shows that it has been created by Rajat. Developed using React. Great. Let's see the design. Okay, we need to change the font color. So text white and I'll use class name. Uh, let's go to button. Text white is already there. Font. Great. Developed with React. Developed with React. Developed using React. Great, great, great. Now on the this side, we want to show the logo, but it should be inverted. So for that, we can use, let's get rid of this from here actually and use it here so that our text looks black here. Now use something called as, I'll use a new property in this. I've already mentioned this to you multiple times that treat them, these components as any HTML content, right? So HTML content can have, HTML tags can have content inside this, which we call them children, which we saw in buttons, right? We passed the children earlier. As well as we can pass properties also, right? So for that, I will create a new property of my own. It is a custom tag. That means custom properties can be created. So I'll create invert. Now let's go to logo and use this name invert. By default value, I'll mention it as false. Okay. But if invert is available, I'm using this JSX so that I can control what classes I want based on if else conditions. So if this invert is false, invert is available, I'll use this $this invert and invert. Okay. What it means is that if this is true, this will be true. If this is true, this will be true. Okay. Which in turn means this entire thing will be equal to invert class. So along with these three classes, flags, gap three, item center, we will have invert also. Okay. So let's see this. If we are not passing anything, it's by default simple. But if we are passing this invert, it automatically gets converted to this. Okay. If I remove it or use false, it will get false. You can see this logo. If I pass true, it will become true. If I don't pass anything, it will be treated as true. Okay. And if I don't use this class at all, great. So now let's go to logo and define this prop type. So for that, I'll go to buttons, use this quickly. Actually, let's alphabetically arrange them. Let's use logo. Great. Now we have to use this invert. Invert. We don't have any children for logo. Sorry, I made some mistakes. Or no, it's correct. We just have invert. The type of that prop type is boolean, right? So we'll use bool. Is it required all the time? No, because we are using invert in footer only and not in header. That means it is not required all the time. Okay, so that's what fixes this thing. Great. So we have created header and footer, and I think we have already crossed 1 hour. One great. Now let's create one more component. I think that component will be this skills. Okay, this one. So let me create a section, new file, skills. Skills, I'm naming it as skills. Okay, or should I mention it as skills section? I think skills is fine. Yes, inside that I will create a skill component and also skills JSX RAF React arrow function component export. Skills is there. Now let's start using this. So I think we can use section for this. And let's use skill. Get rid of this. Go to app and import skills. We have these skills. Great. The padding and margin, all those things are already there. So now we have to first show the text and everything else will be shown later. So for text, it is a special text because you see we have regular font and bold font. Same applies here, same applies here, same applies here. Although the color is changing, which we can control using similar to what we did for logo, like using the invert class, but we need two more attributes. One is regular text, which is this, and one is extra bold text, which is this. So let's create this component. Normally we have h1 to h6 tags, span tags, p tags. We will create a component called variable weight text. Variable weight text dot j6. RAFC. Great. Now this should be an h2 because normally we are using for headings of various sections, right? And class name. Let's create a simple text first before we add the customizations and all. My skills, right? There is a gap of 16. Great. So flex items center. Actually, not flex. We'll use simple space x4, which will give automatically space between those two items. Okay, we don't need flex for this. And in this, it is not in center. In this, it is in center of the container. Here also it is in center of the container. Here, if we are thinking of it in this term, it is not in center. So we cannot give center property directly. So let's give the default text should be text regular. Assuming the first text is regular actually. Let me check. Yes, it is regular. Font regular, I think. Font, no, we don't need to mention that. Base, no. So let's not mention regular. If it is not there, it's fine. What is the text size? 56. 56. So let me check that in Tailwind. Font size 56. 56 will be somewhere around this text 5 pixel. So let's use text 5 pixel. And let's use my and then use span for skills. The only change will be font. Is it extra bold or bold? Extra bold. Extra bold. Now let's see. Refresh. It is not working. So we'll have to use this variable text, variable weight text and skills. And let's close this. And we can see it is working, but the gap is not there. So what more thing we can do? Actually, let's get rid of this space and simply use margin start 4. No, 5. Let me check. We have 16, so 4. And the result is we do have a gap in this. Great. So now, what next? What can we do? We need to pass this text separately, right? So what I will do is I'll pass two texts here, two properties. Obviously, we had already discussed this that we will pass invert. So invert and what else? Regular text, extra bold text. So let's pass these three things and let's add prop types for this. So for that, I'll go to logo, copy this, paste it here, go to logo, copy this, paste it at top. Okay, and use this invert is already there. Regular text prop types dot string, and we do need it all the time, because if it is not there, then why are you using variable weight text? Okay, you can use some simple h1 h2 those kind of text, right? Extra bold also, we don't need invert all the time. So now let's use that thing also, that if it is invert, let's start using JSX, and in that we'll use a string interpolation, so that if it is invert, and then we'll use class called invert. Okay, the default value of this will be false. Great. Why is it not is declared but is never used, never read? Okay, so let's use this here inside JSX. Let's use this here inside JSX. Great. Now this code is correct. Let's go to skills and pass all those things. So we'll pass regular text, and you can see now we are also getting those options. So I'll pass it as my extra bold text. We'll pass it as skills. And do we need to invert it? No. By default, it is black and we need it black only. It looks like this. Great. But we want this in center. So what I'll do is I'll use class flex column items center. Yes, it is in center. And if I go to container, there is a gap of 30, 20, 20 actually. And there is a padding of 32 also. So let's add that padding px. Actually, if we are using smaller devices, it will be 0. And on larger devices, it will be px8. Maybe in medium also I can give something medium px4. Fine. And what's the gap between those items? 20. So that gap will be 5. Okay. That I'm just going in depth of it now. You must have gotten hang of it, but the point here is that trying to copy things as much perfect as much we can. But there is one new concept, which is how do we show these content in our these 10 items in our what is it, React code website, right? So we have icons and we have text, and we will have to keep on changing them, right? So let's first start creating a skill card, use it once here, and then start replicating things. Okay, so for that, again, I'll go to components, create a new file called skill card.jsx, RAFC. Great. And inside this, now I'll directly start using things. Okay. I know that it will get inverted on hover, uh, but on hover only, right? So that property won't get passed. The icon will get passed and the text will get passed. So let's start using that. Class name, sorry, not skill icon and skill. Sorry, it doesn't look good. So I'll use icon and text. And let's start using properties. For that, I'll again go to this, paste, copy, paste, and use a skill card. Okay, it's your choice. How do you want to pass it, as a children or these things as properties? I want to pass things as properties only. So icon prop types dot it. I don't know exactly what icon is, so I'll it can be a string because it's a relative path. I'll use any so that it works. Okay, and it is required so that we don't miss anything. And text prop types dot string dot is required. Great. Now let's start using them. So they are vertically aligned. So we'll use flex class name, flex, uh, flex column. What's the gap between them? So I'll select one of the skills. The gap between them is 32 and the padding is 24. Gap between them is 32 and padding is 24. Okay. So padding 24 means P6 and gap is 32. 32 is way too much, so it will be 8. Now let's start using image src and it will be equals to icon and we'll use p tag here. P tag should be fine and we'll use text. How should that font look like? That font should have a bold text, so font bold. It should have 24. So 24 means text large. Anything else should I focus on? No, I think it's fine. It should be things should be in center, so items center. And now let's use this skill card at one point. For icon, right now I'll just import the logo. So import logo or maybe download icon. Download icon from asset/download. So let's pass the icon and text will be uh, Java. Actually, let's use Git. And we can see the text for this icon is not visible. So for that, what I'll use is class name. Actually, we have used white icon only, right? So let's change this to logo. And we can see things are looking good. Now let's start adding border and everything around that. So border is rounded with what's the roundness of this skill card? 4. So let's use border to rounded border black bg white. Okay, it's looking really bad. So let's use aspect square. Okay, now we will need to limit this. So for limiting this, width is 186, height is 186. So we'll use maximum width and maximum height attribute here. I will start it here. Max width 186px, max height 186px. We'll see if we'll need minimum later on or not. Okay, but it is not a square. Why is it not a square? Max height I have mentioned, max width I have mentioned. Aspect square. Okay, aspect square was creating problem. No, I think something else is creating problem. So let me inspect. I think the padding is creating problem. So let's do one thing. Let's get rid of these paddings completely. Yes. So not px actually, it should be p. Wait, I'm making some mistake here. I'm using it at incorrect places. I should have used it at skill card and I'm using it at skill. And now everything looks good. Let me change this. Does it? It looks fine. But the gap doesn't look that good. Why does gap doesn't look that good? Because it has a height of 20 again. So let's add that. Let's create a class name, class name, grade, grade columns 2 on a small device which is mobile. It has 2, right? Yes, so 2 grade. On medium I'll use grade columns 3. On large I'll use grade columns 5, maybe. We'll see. Okay, justify between. Okay, this doesn't work. So using grid. Let's use this and see. Okay, we have 4 rows. If we change it to 1, it will have this. So maybe we can mention columns and row can be flowing. So instead of 1 column, we will have 2, 3. Okay, got it. So what we'll do is on larger devices, it will have 5 columns. On medium, it will have grid columns 4. On smaller devices, it will have grid columns 3, and below that it will have grid columns 2. We'll keep on changing them, but right now it's fine for me. Great, looks fine. On hover, we want to change the entire UI. So for that, what I'll do is I'll go to skill card and I'll use something very simple, which is hover invert. Let's see. If I invert this, it does look good. But there is one issue. If you notice it correctly, the border color is also getting changed, and because of that it looks like that the card has reduced in size. So what I'll do is I'll create a div outside this. Or can I use invert? No, I'll just directly create a div outside this which will contain the border actually, and it will actually clear some UI part for us. So let's cut all these things, class name, paste it here along with aspect square. Now it looks good, really good actually. So things do take time. It has been like 1.5 hours, but it is looking good. Now what we'll do is we want to show, like they are showing 10 skills. I already have my list of skills, so I'll try to show all those skills. Now doing this, those many skills means that we have to replicate this again and again, which is a repetitive thing. So what I'll do is I'll create an array and iterate over that array. So let's start doing that. Const skills data. I generally name data related thing as skills data. I'll use name, sorry, not name, title, which will be get, and what else? Icon, which will be not this, download icon. Great. Now let's do something similar for JavaScript. I'll simply copy this, paste it here. And now we'll use skill data to show all these cards. So for that, we have something called as map. We will start the JSX. Inside that, I'll use JavaScript code, which is skill data.map. Map basically allows us to convert this data, which is a JavaScript object, into a UI element. Okay, so let's do that. We'll get each and every skill, and from that, basically we are setting up an arrow function which takes the argument this, which is a skill. From that, I'll return some UI. What will be that UI? That UI will be this. Okay. Now there is one problem. All these cards will be siblings, right? Earlier when it was pasted here, this skill card is sibling of this skill card, right? So if we are not using map, React will automatically give a unique key to this skill card. Okay. But if we are using map, then it becomes our duty to provide those unique key. Okay. So that React can identify those components separately. So what can be the unique key? You can either add indexes here, but our skill name is still unique, right? So I will use that as a key. Skill dot title. Similarly, I will use it for this text value also, and I'll use it for icon also. Great. Now let's see this again, and you can see get JavaScript, get JavaScript. So let's get rid of this duplication. Get JavaScript, get JavaScript. Great. So now we just have to focus on creating this data. That's it. So for that, I can quickly do that because I've already downloaded all these icons that I need. Uh, in your case, you can export it from here, or you can go to free SVG, this SVG repo, and in this you'll find all the files. Okay. For example, if I search React, you'll find this logo, whichever you want to use. I'm using black and white theme, so I'll use black and white logo also. So let's go to assets, YouTube assets or project assets, skills. Let's copy all of these. Go to assets, paste it here. Okay. Now let's start creating things. So first I'll focus on writing front-end related things, then back-end related things, then Android related things, right? So let's start. React. Actually, I should import logos first. So import, I'll use these names here. So accessibility icon from dot slash assets slash accessibility dot svg. Great. Now let's use Android. Android. What's next? Download, no. Figma. Figma for now. Yeah. I don't want to mention it, but yeah, for now it's fine. Then Firebase GCP. Okay. Firebase GCP. Oh, sorry. GCP icon. GCP. Get Java JavaScript. Get icon. Java icon. Get Java JavaScript. JavaScript icon. Kotlin. Kotlin PostgreSQL. Kotlin icon. Kotlin PostgreSQL. I was thinking if it will give auto results, but it was not. That's fine. PostgreSQL. It will take some time. You can forward it quickly, but the point here is that it will look good. Rails, Rails, React Ruby Storybook, React icon. By the way, if you need video for any of these, do let me know. Android would be a bit hard for me now because I haven't done coding in that for 2 years, but before that I used to code for like 6 years in that. So it's hard, but it's not, it's still possible. Depends how many viewers want this. Storybook I should cover. I should cover it in something. TypeScript icon. Type SCRPT script. Now let's start using that. So for that, I'll use them in alphabetical order only for now. Figma, Firebase, GCP. Figma, Firebase, GCP. Figma icon. Oh, Figma icon. Firebase icon. GCP icon. What's next? Get icon. JavaScript icon. Java icon. Okay, get was not used, so let's use get icon again. Then Kotlin icon, Kotlin, Postgres, Postgres, React, React, Rails icon, Storybook, Storybook, Tailwind CSS, and finally TypeScript. I want to create a good video for TypeScript also. Tailwind CSS, Storybook, React, Ruby on Rails. I'll write Ruby on Rails or yeah, because I haven't mentioned Ruby language, so it's fine. PostgreSQL, Kotlin, JavaScript, Android should not be here. Java, Git. Hope I haven't missed anything. Yeah. Now let's go. Refresh. Okay. Now we can see the designs have messed up, right? So let's start fixing this. This is a blue color icon. So I'll fix it at core only actually. So what I'll do is I'll go to this icon which is for accessibility and I'll find this color code which I think should be here. Fill color. So this is fixed. Now I need to fix icons also. So icon size, what was the icon size here? We haven't mentioned that. So icon size is 56 by 56. So let's start using that. Go to skill card, class name, width 56px, height 56px. Now it looks good, but it is not taking full height. So I'll have to use aspect ratio, aspect square for this one also. Yes. But if we check the corners, you can see corners are not looking that great. So for that, I think if we use rounded inside also, it will get fixed. Yes. No. Rounded MD. So rounded MD can be outside. Looks good. It's still not perfect, but looks good. Really good. So you can see how it looks. I'm really happy with this. This one is still messing up things. So let me change it to Rails only because this one is the longest one. Yes, accessibility one is not creating any problems. So let me change it to Rails. Tailwind CSS, right? So Tailwind, let me get rid of it. And maybe what I can do is I can get rid of the padding also. Oh, okay. We need that P6. Storybook is not getting cut. This. Okay, maybe you can see this. If you need to decrease the text size, you can do that. Okay. So we have done the basic work here. Let's do one more. I think it's fine. You can do more on this work. I think we have created all the important components. I think I have to add margin top here. So for that, I'll go through skills. Uh, Margin top 12. Yes. We have already gone through all the important things in this. Let me check if actually there is something which needs to be done. You can create this card, borders, add icons. This can be managed, not a big deal. These images can be downloaded and can be managed. One thing that I should do is basically creating this link, okay, because it's an external link. So it is similar to what we have for logo here. When we click on logo, we should go to home page. Like it is part of every website, right? So what we'll do is we'll make this logo clickable so that we can go to home page. And for that we need link. Okay, so let's go to, we can use a tag with href attribute, but that's not the best way. The best way in React to do this is using link. So let's do that. Okay, I think we'll have to install React Router DOM. React Router DOM install. Okay, it helps us in routing, like navigating between different pages and between your website and external websites. Okay, so I'll show you both the demos actually. Okay, I'm using it here. That does not mean that you have mastered React Router DOM, but it's the very basic example of what we need to do. We need to make this clickable. So let's go add link, React Router DOM. It has been imported, slash link. Okay, why is it not working? Let's see, inspect. Okay, I think we will have to wrap our website in React Router DOM. Yes, we will have to wrap our website. Getting started guide. We have installed it, React Router DOM, and we can use this here. Although we have only one page, but it's fine. Let's import this and let's create a router here. And inside that, on home page, we want to render app. Okay, I am not going in depth of it because it's not the most important concept here, at least for this website. It's not the most important one. Now if we click on it, we can see nothing is happening, so we will have to, in a tag we have href, in this we have a this to tag. So I can mention something like www.google.com. Refresh, click, and we can see www.google.com. Okay, it is giving relative path. You can configure this to open it in the next page, but what we will do is we will use slash here. Okay, and if it is becoming way too complicated, you can still use a tag. It's fine. In future projects, when we create some big projects, I'll explain React Router in detail. Right now, we don't need that actually. Okay, so yeah, I think it's a good thing. Everything is good. Now let's push this code on GitHub, and from that, host it on Netlify. So for that, I'll go to my GitHub, create a new project, new React resume. It will be a private project. I don't need a README file. Let's create a repository directory. Stop this. Git init. Initialized. Git add. Sorry. Git add all. Commit. After commit, let's create a main branch. On that, let's connect it to our repository and push the code. And let's go to Netlify. I already have an account there. I'll just log in directly. Let's refresh. And we have this. Once you log in, you can always add a new site. What I'll do is I'll update my previous site because my previous site is already on rajattalesra.netlify app, but it's a bootstrap website. I don't want to use that anymore. So what I'll do is I'll go to Rajat Talesra and maybe I will delete it actually. Site configure, transfer site, no. There should be something, right? Okay. If I'm unable to find it, directly delete it. Looks like something went wrong. We track these. Okay. Definitely some problem. Looks like my internet went off. Okay, my internet is down. So I'll have to connect it to my mobile data. Yes. No, I don't want to do that. Let me check. Fast.com. Once it gets connected, let me check. No, my internet is not working. So let me connect it to mobile data. Let's refresh. Okay, now let's refresh this again. And let's delete this directly. Site configuration. Because I know that I can actually get that name again. That's why I'm deleting it. Easy thing. Now let's add a new site, import an existing project from GitHub. You'll have to log in, connect, all those things, basic things. I'm using Netlify because it can be, I can host it for free here. There are other platforms also which you can try. Resume. Why do I need to configure it here? Why is it not working? Maybe because it's a private project. So let's make it public. Let me check again. 3 months old. No. React resume. 3 minutes old. So let's use this. Site name will be Rajat Talesra. Check availability. It should be available. Yes, it is available. Main branch, I want to use that. Now, what it will do is it will take my GitHub code, run this command, which is npm build, and from that, it will take all the related files and publish this. Okay. So if you are using GoDaddy or some other hosting services where you want to push only files, what you can do is you can use npm run build command and it will generate a build folder. And from that build folder, you can paste things. Okay. We don't need any environment variables. Deploy. It will take some time, uh, but let's see. Site is in progress, 8:10. It should get done in like 1 or 2 minutes. Let's hope it gets finished in 2 minutes. Okay. It was a long video, but I think we created a really good responsive website really quickly. Okay. When you work on things on your own, you'll figure out that it does take time. Okay. I just want to check one more thing. Actually, I just thought of it. Do these icons have corners also? No, zero. So it's fine. Now let's see. Refresh. Now we can see things are updated. I'll update this website fully, but you can still understand it's looking good. Let me check here. Looks good, looks good, looks good. I might change margin and padding around this, but we'll see. Overall, I'm happy with the result. So if you like this video, do leave a comment, subscribe to this channel, and I'll create. If you need more Rails React specific content, do let me know. I'll go in depth of it. This is like we have just created components which is like 10% of React. Okay, we have 90% of React to cover. But my advantage here is that if you're using React and you also know Rails, for that also I will be creating a separate starting project. Then you can use Rails plus React and create any full stack application, which will be really beneficial for you because it won't stop you in doing great things. Okay, and now do subscribe turn on the notifications icon so that I can, when you will get notified as soon as I create new videos. If you need any more content, do let me know. Today someone posted that they need, actually I can show it to you. Studio, no, YouTube RT codes. Yes. Let me go to my community tab, and in that you can see someone I posted 5 hours ago that, hey, what is the scene like? Do you have your own resume website? What is the link for that? Everything around that. Out of those, right now there are 6 comments, but at that point there were only 2 comments mentioning, yeah, it would be great, yeah, it would be great. It's 2 hours ago, and after seeing those comments, I started working on it, right? So that's how I normally work. If someone is giving good suggestion, I'll work on it. Okay. And it's just 6 votes, right? It's 4 likes. It's really less, but still, it's good. So, by the way, thanks to Kevin and Infinity. And I might not be able to pronounce this name correctly, but thanks to all of you because you mentioned and I created. So, if you need more content, do let me know. I cannot guarantee that I'll create it within 2 hours because a lot of content is in pipeline, but still, I'll try. So that's it for now. Thank you. Bye bye.